Well, the first ever U.S. Africa Summit is underway here in Washington. Over 40 African leaders are in the nation's capital to discuss a myriad of important topics. Among them is peace and security. Speaking at an event on Friday, the Congolese president pointed to terrorist threats and armed violence but argued the issue goes much deeper than military or police action. U.S. Mariama Diallo reports.
The terrorist group Boko Haram strikes repeatedly in Nigeria. Al-Shabaab operates in Somalia, while the Central African Republic faces an insurgency by a coalition of armed groups. Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso at the National Press Club in Washington says it's important to address the multidimensional character of security, especially while Africa is still a very young continent.
Most African countries are only 50 years old. This relative youth cannot certainly excuse any mistakes or weaknesses on our part. Let's remember that the turmoil we live in is very much the cut and thrust and the ups and downs of our young adulthood.
He says as African states seek maturity, security must be addressed as more than a question of defense, but also the viability of young democracies.
The lack of security is often the very result of a number of problems that converges most especially poverty and injustice. Poverty is without question the first factor in lack of security.
Some diplomats credit Mr. Nguesso's country as playing a big role in promoting peace in the neighboring Central African Republic. CAR ambassador to the U.S., Stanislas Musa Kembe.
President Sassou Nguesso knows the Central African Republic very well, and he's really been very engaged in helping us find peace and security.
Most people who attended the event say security in Africa is important, but they also hope that President Obama and the African leaders will address other challenges. Christopher Fomunyo is the regional director for the Africa program at the National Democratic Institute.
Substantive discussions on helping promote trade and investments, helping create an enabling environment that can allow for American private sector as well as African private sector to emerge in that environment and take advantage of the potential that Africa presents.
Cheikh Tidiane Gadio is a former Senegal foreign minister who says that he hopes infrastructure takes center stage.
President Obama's idea of helping the electricity infrastructure in Africa is extremely important, but I thought it should have been a continental project, not like selecting countries based on some criteria.
The White House says 7 in 10 African countries lack access to electricity. The Leaders Summit will promote the initiative called Power Africa, with the goal of doubling the number of people who live with electrical power. In Washington, Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Well, joining us now on the phone amid tight security from the U.S. Africa Summit is VOA's Mariama Diallo. Mariama, tell us about some of today's activities on the first day of the summit.
Yes, Vincent, the summit kicks off today, and I would say they are cramming lots of events. Some of them happening simultaneously, others back-to-back. But today's panels included a civil society and governance forum where we saw the participation of U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, Malawi's Foreign Minister, George Chaponda. You also had on the panel, I think, a Tunisian activist and others, and the audience varied from other African ministers, including a minister from actually Burkina Faso who was not on the panel, but she got up and asked a question about her country. And with YALI participants, the young African leaders who were here last week, and others. There were also another civil society where Secretary Kerry, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, spoke at, where the panel actually included 2 presidents, the Ghanaian President Dramani Mahama and Tanzania's Jakaya Kikwete, and the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, and others. The panel was actually moderated by our own Shaka Sally, and I hear that you were maybe going to be moderating one of those panels, but too bad that we had to be in the studio, right?
Well, I love this too. My next question would be,
Yes.
there's a lot of talking that is going to be happening on the sidelines, but what is the
Yes.
real thrust of this summit that is supposed to be really the centerpiece of this conference?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of stuff, and it's not just one thing. I think that's going to come out of this summit. It's a 3-day summit. You have over 40 or 45 heads of states, almost 51 heads of states and heads of delegations. So I think that's why they're having all these little panel discussions, so they can try to address all the little issues out there. When you have a civil society, they have another one that's going to talk about investing in women, investing in peace and security. Another one that I'm about to get into in a few minutes will talk about investing in health in Africa. And I would say time is of the essence here with everything that's happening with the Ebola outbreak. I think in that panel is probably going to be very crowded, and I think we expect to see some U.S. government officials, African leaders, ministers of health, and other senior health policy makers. So there is a lot of stuff. There's another one that's going to talk about food security in a changing climate. Other things that are going to talk about combating wildlife trafficking. Another one is taking place as I speak, which is the AGOA Forum, which is another very important one that is going to talk about the renewal of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which is set to expire in 2015. So there are so many different things, so many issues, and it's hard to just talk about one thing. It's going to just be a lot of different things, a lot of different issues, I think, that they're going to try to address in these 3 days.
Very few days, and of course the highlight is going to be of the address of the U.S. President Barack Obama. Mariama?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, that's cool.
We look forward to that. Mariama Diallo reporting from the U.S. Africa Summit in Washington.